So I'm actually starting the recording. And there's the feedback.
Yeah, good. No recording.
Oh yeah, we've got you on tape now.
Oh, crap.
Can use it in a court of law if we need to.
Oh, this is just horrible. It sounds like my childhood all over.
Wait, well, can't help you there.
You should be able to.
Okay, how is everyone this week?
Oh, just lovely.
Okay, how is everyone this week?
On my class. I'm looking at you right now.
Okay, I'm still hearing the feedback, so I'm going to try a couple things here.
Brittany.
Okay, so now Jess, I can see you. Can everybody else see Jess?
Yeah.
Jess. And who's that over to the right? Brittany.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yes.
Jess, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yes. I can now.
Jess, can you hear me?
I can now. Yes, you can.
All right, I'm still getting feedback. I'm going to exit the meeting and come back in.
Okay.
Because I don't think it's anybody else's except mine.
No, I can hear a lot of feedback. I think what it is everyone, if you turn your volume down a little bit so that it's, or if you do have speakers, put them away from the computer.
So I have a earbud, so I do anything?
Jess, do you have speakers that are like external speakers?
I can't get to my, like on the bottom of my computer, because the screen like full.
Say it again.
Okay.
I can't get to the bottom of my screen because it's full. Okay, I don't know. Oh wait, maybe if I push Windows. Okay, hold on. Yeah, my volume's pretty high up.
Okay. So if you can turn that down a little bit.
Is that better?
I think so. I don't hear feedback. Do you guys? Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Can everybody see my screen? Good.
Yes.
Except for Nick. I know you can't see the screen. It's okay.
Oh, no, I can see some screen, but it's just like flashing back and forth for me.
Okay. Well, do you have the handouts in front of you?
No, they're on my phone.
Okay.
I'll figure it all out. Don't worry. Just
okay. All right. It's all good. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to tonight we're going to talk about developmental tasks of school-age children. So we're going to talk about the different kinds of things that school-age kids are doing in your programs, and then we're going to talk about addressing learners with special needs. The handouts that I sent to you, the module particularly concentrates on children with ADHD because we do see a fair number of children diagnosed with ADHD in your program, but we can also talk about other kids with other exceptionalities. And, we can make it on a case-by-case basis. So if you're like, hey, I have a kid who's on the autism spectrum and I'm really not sure what to do. Plus, we also, when we look at the information about ways to include children with ADHD and coping mechanisms to give them, they're not that specific to ADHD. There's some of those things that you can try with children, with other children. They may not have that diagnosis. Okay? All right. So the first real page, as I call it, which is on page 3 of these handouts, is talking about developmental tasks of school-age children. So I'm going to assign 1 or 2 of these to each of you, and we're just going to share out. So Brittany, if you could take growing physically and developing small muscle coordination, so you're going to read those 2 and then explain them to the rest of the group. Ashley, if you could please take developing new thinking abilities.
Okay.
And Renee, if you could take developing new social skills and expanding their world beyond family, home and family. Okay. And Jess, if you could take developing competencies. And Nick, are you able to access yours?
Yeah, but it's like I'm looking at your screen, but it's just flashing back and forth. I'm just trying to figure out my computer quick also.
Okay. If you can read the developing a positive sense of self.
Okay.
Are you able to read that? I know that it's flashing a little bit. I'm trying to make room so that you can see it.
Yeah, well, stop flashing it.
Blah, blah. Okay, and then I'm going to take moving toward independence. So just take a few minutes. Each of you read your own section, and then we'll come back and you can tell us what your section said.
Ooh.
Nick, are you done reading your section?
Yeah.
Okay. Is everyone else finished?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep. All right. So basically we start out and we talk about, kids who are between ages 5 and 12, which is a really broad range when you think about it, because a 5-year-old's working on some different skills than a 12-year-old, and you've got a wide range in between. They are working on a number of major tasks related to their physical, social, cognitive, and emotional development. So it's important that in our programs we understand those tasks and create and implement a balanced program of experiences that support them. So, Jess, tell us about, Brittany, tell us about growing physically.
Growing physically, they're basically saying kids, like as they're growing in this time period, are new toys basically for them, and they want to see how they work. From one point of the year to the end of the year, you see a kid, grow upward usually, height-wise, and, that means they have longer legs, so they want to run faster and so on. So it's just telling, it's an imperative part, meaning all day at school that, they're kind of sitting down, they're in passive situations. So growing physically, it needs the support from after school time or out of school time to do that.
Yeah. So, and it was interesting. I was reading an article. I don't know if any of you saw it because it was like on, like Yahoo Stories, but it was talking about research that was done, and I think we were even talking about this last week. Research that was done that showed that if children get enough physical exercise, that they perform better in school. And I'm like, well, duh. Like, hello. Like, we already knew that was the case. And so that a lot of schools who, as a result of the No Child Left Behind legislation, they had cut out like recess and phys ed and those kinds of things. I mean, there were some schools where they're only getting 10 minutes of recess once a week. And yeah, so when they come to us, they really need that time to develop those physical skills. And we see this a lot in urban situations where, school-age kids come to us, and when they do finally get a chance to run, like, it's clear that they have not had time to develop those skills really well. Because, you know what I'm talking about, right? The kids run, like, you're like, where did they learn to run? And the thing is they didn't really, because they didn't have enough opportunities to do so. So it's really important that we provide those areas for them to develop physically in our school-age programs. Okay? How about developing small muscle coordination?
That one's just the same thing, saying the same thing about children, meaning they need the physical action, but to have at your site a level of age ranges for, you know, which, like a 5-year-old, like you said, a 5-year-old is different from a 12-year-old. So a 5-year-old, I have a 5-year-old on my site right now who's all about cartwheels, and she's learning how to cartwheel and cartwheel, where I have a 12-year-old who's perfecting his 3-point shot. You know, it's just a whole bunch of different physical activities that are appropriate for the ages you have, and knowing that they're not the same.
Right, and so if you've got an age range of kids from 5 to 12, what does that mean about the equipment that you have to have in your program?
There needs to be a lot of different equipment for
Yeah.
5 to 12.
Yeah. And what do you do when you have like 2 kindergartners and then no 1st and 2nd graders and then 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders?
Make it work.
Yeah, you make it work. That's tough too. You just need to keep that in mind because, you know, sometimes our tendency as teachers is the older kids do have a tendency to be a little bit more independent in terms of choosing what they want to do with their time. Like they know when they get to go outside, they want to practice the 3-point shot. And so you need to have those materials available, but you can't forget about the younger kids who may need to have a variety of things to choose from in order to select a skill to work on. So, you know, just to keep that in mind. And it is a challenge because that does mean that there's got to be a lot of different equipment available. But you need to just be thinking about the kids in your program and making that work. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about developing new thinking abilities. Ashley.
As school children are getting older, they're able to use different abilities. They can problem solve a lot better. They can analyze and use reason. They can focus on things for a longer period of time than they used to be able to. And so they may want to work on something for several hours, days, a week, as opposed to just a couple minutes. And they also are able to think about people, places, and events beyond the immediate time and place. And they're able to think about things more abstractly, and they're thinking more about moral questions like what's right and wrong.
Yeah, they have a little bit more of that analytical skill where they're able to think about things that might be right or wrong and why, and they're starting to develop those understandings of different life events. You know, things when kids are really little that they really just don't have the life experience to understand why things happen the way they do. Or just today, like right before class, I had my 2-year-old with me, and I was trying to get some stuff done on the computer, and she's like, up, please? And I'm like, okay, just a minute, I'm almost done. She's like, what does that mean? I want up, you know? She's like, up, please? You know? So she doesn't get that, whereas you can reason with a 5-year-old and say, I need 2 more minutes on the computer, and they get that 2 minutes is not a huge amount of time, and that they need to wait, so. Okay, developing new social skills.
Well, obviously, every time you're... Can you hear me?
We're getting feedback from you. Yeah.
Okay.
You might want to turn your microphone down a little bit, too.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. You're still getting feedback.
Yeah.
Okay. Every time kids interact with each other, they're developing their social skills in like every way, with talking, with listening. Everything helps develop social skills, no matter who they're talking to, I think. So it's just basically saying that kids are always developing social skills.
Mm-hmm.
for school-age children. If you do an activity, whether it's outside play, anything, it helps. They learn how to interact. They learn how to communicate. You can like help them talk about stuff. Like if an argument comes up, you can. That also teaches social skills.
Right. And it's really important that I think sometimes we think that simply because they're getting all of these interactions that they will just learn social skills, they'll just pick it up. But we really need to be very intentional about our teaching social skills. We need to, when those situations arise, and modeling, the appropriate behavior, the appropriate way to ask for things, teaching them how to enter play, that you don't just walk in and just decide that you want to play with the volleyball now and take it from the kids who are playing with it, those kinds of things. And I also think that social skill development, that should be part of curriculum. So what we talked about this when we talked about the behavior, having class meetings where the kids are resolving conflict, where they're learning how to behave with one another, where they're learning how to communicate. And it can be as simple as, because I run into this with adults, like if you ask me a question and it was for information or whatever the nature of the question is, do you see the difference between, at the end, me saying, so do you get it? Do you understand? And me saying, so am I making sense? Am I explaining that clearly enough?
Yeah.
What's the difference between the two?
One sounds kind of rude and one doesn't.
One's like, so are you smart enough? Did you understand what I was talking about? Like, did you get it, or are you just too thick?
Yeah.
And the other one is, I'm taking the responsibility for making sure I made myself clear and explained it well, rather than putting the responsibility on you to understand what I said. Okay? So it's even those kinds of things, because most adults lack that, really. The discernment of understanding how to communicate effectively so that you don't offend somebody. It's very funny because you guys remember that email that the series of emails that I shared with you when we talked about communication?
Oh, yeah.
With the teenagers.
Yeah, the people who sounded like teenagers. Well, it's kind of funny because this past weekend, we got this email in our institution, and they have this. Anyone who sends an email has the ability to just click everyone, and it will send an email to every single person who has anything to do with the college, right? So it was about voting as to whether adjunct faculty should be able to vote in department decisions. And the person who was taking it was an informal survey. This was not a formal vote. The person who was taking the survey basically laid out information and said, did you know that adjunct faculty make up 60% of the faculty? Did you know that adjunct faculty teach over 70% of the courses? Did you know? And she gave all of this, background basically. And then she said, here's a survey that you can take. Well, immediately there was feedback from someone who was like, when an email that is asking me to vote starts out with, did you know, it's really trying to sway my vote. And I don't appreciate, being treated like that. And I know when I'm being manipulated. And I was like, oh, here we go. So all weekend long.
Was it the same lady who was like...
No, you would think, right?
Yeah.
Same person. All weekend long. And all day today, because apparently, people just got to their email today, it was back and forth and turned into ridiculous comments. And I really wanted to say, I don't typically participate in everyone emails, but how about if we start with these two things? One, 90% of communication is nonverbal. So when you are trying to glean everything from an email, you have a tendency to get your panties in a wad because you don't understand what somebody is saying. Okay?
I hope you use that same language.
And number two, can we just do some kind of representation of adjuncts? Here's the fear, just as an aside. in the education department, for example, there are 20 adjuncts and there are 3 full-time people. So if they gave adjuncts voting rights, we could outvote the full-time faculty. See what I mean? So they don't want that to happen. And I get that. I get that because the full-time faculty are there all the time. They have a better context of what's going on in the department. Like they are exposed to a lot more information than we are. So I'm like, how about if we have 1 adjunct per 10 adjuncts represent the adjuncts and have a vote? And they're like, oh, wow. We hadn't thought about that. Like, yeah, because you were too busy, you know, at each other's throats about ridiculousness. Like, I just couldn't get it. So anyway, that was more on the hack development, but we got a little off tangent there. So, okay. Was it Jess who had expanding their world beyond home and family?
No, it's me.
Is that you? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I like when children can be involved in stuff and go home and tell their parents about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this is talking about, because I love when parents come in and say, yeah, she told me what you did yesterday and she loved it and she told me all about it, because that expands their world completely when they can talk about everything their day and what they did and love what they did. And that's basically what I get from this. And it makes them feel better. It makes them feel good, and it makes them feel confident. I think so.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It goes, you know, into the next 2. But you're right. When you create experiences for them that they think are just so stinking cool, you know, that because you have to remember when their parents pick them up from school and they're like, what did you do in school today? They're like, nothing. So if they remember what they did with you and it was, you know, noteworthy enough for them to tell their parents about it, that's pretty awesome. Okay, when you bridge that gap between home and school. So I think that that's really cool.
And a good way to judge it, too, I feel like I had one summer where I just had 4th grade girls, and it was like I was in 4th grade again, and everything was magical. Like, it was so cool. I literally found myself every day going home. And I was in college, and I still lived with my mom. I was like, oh, my God, Mom, you won't believe what we did today. Today we made collages about our dream homes, and, you know, but, like, it was the stuff that I found. Like, if I'm having fun, they're having fun.
Yeah.
If I want to tell somebody about it, like, they're probably going to tell somebody about it.
Yeah.
So that's the way, like, I, like, chop it up to, like, developing, like, you know, certain things that are developing in different worlds. Like, you guys can share a world. There's no, you know, difference between it. So, like,
Absolutely. No, you're right about that.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like Jess disconnected for a minute. So, Nick, why don't you share yours, developing a positive sense of self, and let's see if we get Jess back.
Well, more or less of what it's talking about is just how kids are like growing with their bodies and stuff like that, and learning new things about themselves. You know, and it's hard for most people because or for most children more or less, because it's the fact of, you know, something's going on with my body, you know, like what am I supposed to do, what's going on, da-da-da-da-da, you know. So I just feel, you know, you gotta, and sometimes it's hard to explain to them that, like, what's really happening to their body.
Yeah. It is so hard because especially as they get closer to the tween years, right? You know, they've got some hormone stuff going on, and you know, you might have the one kid who's like, who really shut up and so is taller than everybody else and they feel out of place because they are. Or you've got the shortest kid in the group who feels out of place because of how short they are. Or you have someone who's really thin and just because you know, their metabolism is really high, and people, you know, in our society, people don't think it's a bad thing to say, oh, you're so skinny. But when you're telling it to, you know, a 10 or an 11-year-old, they don't have that life experience to understand that that might be a compliment. They just know that that makes them different. And if someone gains weight or they're a little pudgy, it's like, oh, you've gained weight, or you're, and now, you know, kids are cool. They're like, you're fat. So, you know, all of those things are just, it's really important to help kids understand that, you know, everybody goes through changes. And if you talk about that on a regular basis, then when they finally do have that happen to them, then it's just, it's not so foreign. You know, you've been talking about it, you explain to them throughout your curriculum and throughout your program structure that these are just changes that everybody goes through. you know, and it's also great to talk about changes you go through in your own personal life and share that with them, the ones that are appropriate. So
Yeah,
Right.
it's hard sometimes to explain to children because I had a girl the other day that hurt herself like playing outside like a couple days ago, and I was like, well, what happened? Like, what did you do? She's like, I fell. I'm like, okay, well, what did you hurt? And she was like pointing down, you know, to like her crotch and stuff and everything. And I'm like, well, what did you hurt? I hurt my nuts.
Oh, God.
I'm like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I'm sorry, honey, but you don't have those. You sure you didn't hurt your bottom? Yeah, that was it. It was my bottom. I'm like, oh my God.
Well, and what you can say is, I mean, yeah, I understand. You kind of want to tell her you don't own any of those, but you can say just what you said. Do you mean you hurt your bottom? Because when we're in school, that's how we refer to that area of our body, you know. So
Yeah, you're wrong.
she'll learn later in sex ed that she doesn't have nuts. So.
It was just crazy. I'm like, how the heck am I supposed to answer this question right now to this little girl that's in first grade?
Yeah, that's a little bit difficult. So,
but you know, you just more or less of what it's saying then also is just you know make sure that they stay positive and always just like keep helping them out with everything that they're growing and let them know that things are going to happen in life and your body's going to change throughout your life the whole time you're growing up.
yeah. And helping them understand that this is life, this is what happens, and it's normal, you know, so that they don't feel like they're so abnormal. Okay? So, Jess, I see that you joined us again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So can you share your area of developing competencies?
Sure. It just says about how the school agers are at the age where they like to be able to do things on their own a little more, and that they like to have more responsibilities in the classroom. Like I have 3 third graders that they have a certain job every day when they come in. Like they collect the tags and they alphabetize them for me, and they really seem to enjoy that the leadership.
Yeah. Do you remember last week when we were talking about, and Jess, you had attended this training before. I'm getting feedback again. Is anybody else hearing that?
I got it. Yeah.
A little.
Okay. Does everyone want to check the volume of the microphone and speakers again?
It's supposed to be down, right?
Yeah, it should be down to the point where you can hear it, but that it's not really loud.
Okay.
Okay. So we talked about, giving kids classroom jobs. I mean, the kids, your school agers, they want to be like you. They want to have, they think they want to have all of those responsibilities and so that they can do things that adults do. And they don't realize the responsibility that comes with all of those privileges. But giving them little bits to make them feel empowered, I think, is a good thing because it does teach them responsibility. And as they become more responsible, you can give them increased responsibility. Okay, let me try.
Self-feedback.
Yeah.
Self-feedback.
I don't know what to do. My volume is like at 1.
No, it has to be Jess because I keep hearing Jess's name at the bottom. Hey, Jess.
I muted her microphone. Jess, I muted your microphone just so we wouldn't get feedback. But then when I need you to talk, I'll unmute your microphone, but I'm thinking it's your... I'm sorry.
Isn't that nice?
I'm just
That feels like PTR. No, it's around the horn.
So, Jess, if you have something like that you want to ask, then just type it in the chat box down here, okay? All right, cool. Okay, so then the last section is moving toward independence, and this is just basically what we were just talking about. We want kids to grow up to be independent adults. because you know and I know we're not going to follow them around. We're not going to be there when they're in college telling them the right thing to do. You know, their parents are going to be there when they're adults telling them what to do. So we're trying to give them those experiences where they can act independently and be responsible for themselves. So that takes a lot of practice. It takes years of practice to become independent. And this actually ties into what we'll talk about next with children with special needs, because I do some advocacy work I help parents out. I go into meetings with them when they have school meetings like IEPs, just so that they can navigate the system and understand what they're able to ask for and what's reasonable. And sometimes I have a parent saying, I want my kid to have a full-time aide. And I'm like, but your kid doesn't need a full-time aide. Okay? So the thing is that you want to support the kids the least amount so that they're successful, whether they have a diagnosis or not, and then pull back. You can always add more support, but if you over-support in the beginning, so the kinds of things that I'm talking about, or let's say you still have that 5-year-old who's struggling with zipping their zipper up, I know, and I get it, it's so much easier for you to just do it so we can get the line of kids outside, because all the other kids are waiting and they're getting antsy. You know, what you need to do is plan that transition better. So you need to call the 5-year-old up first so they have more time to get their jacket zipped up, and then you also need to provide some kind of distraction activity to the rest of the kids while they are trying to, you know, get themselves together, so that way you give that 5-year-old more time to practice that skill so they can become independent. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so let's move on. We've got 3 school-age scenarios here. Okay, and these are the questions for discussion. So what we're going to do is I'm going to assign the one scenario to 2 people, and each person is going to take 1 question regarding their scenario. So the first question is, what developmental tasks are school-age children working on in this scenario? And then what could school-age staff do to support and encourage children in the scenarios as they work on various developmental tasks? Okay? So like Brittany and Ashley, I want you to take the first one. So you're going to take Amanda, age 6. And so Brittany, you'll take the first question. So you want to read this and figure out what developmental tasks Amanda is working on in this scenario. And Ashley, you're going to come up with an idea of what school-age staff could do to support and encourage Amanda as she works on these various developmental tasks. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Renee and Jess, you're going to take number 2, and that's Kendall. So Renee, you're going to answer the first question, and Jess, you'll answer the second question. And Nick, you're going to take, let's do it this way, number 3, and you'll take the first question, and I'll take the second question.
What, scenario 3?
Yeah, you've got Katie, age 12. I pulled it up on this. Can you see it on my screen?
Yeah, I can see it. Just
okay.
I can see scenario 3.
Okay, so that's the one you want to read through. You're going to take the first question, which is, what are the things she's working on? What are those skills, the skills we just talked about earlier?
Oh, what Katie's working on, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm still trying to figure out my computer. It's saying that I'm not connected to the internet, but I have a Wi-Fi connection of full, and it's just not doing anything right now.
You might want to reboot.
So I'll give it a shot, and if it doesn't work.
Okay.
But I'll read for now.
Okay. Did anybody need more time?
I don't think so.
Jess, are you ready? Okay. All right, so Amanda, age 6, what are some of the skills she's working on? First, tell us the scenario briefly.
Samantha, good Lord. Amanda is, I guess, new to the school age program, and she's trying to figure out what she likes. She loves art, she loves dramatic play, and she loves going outside and watching the other children play. However, she's very shy. So she walks around from one, one area to the next, never really staying, but she stays with art and the dramatic area. Like I said, she's shy though, so it's kind of hard for her to interact with the other kids.
Okay, so what skills is she working on?
Right now she's working on, since she's 6, it says that she likes to do a lot of artistic stuff, and she likes to use a lot of colors. She likes to use a lot of different media with her artwork, even though she doesn't know she's doing it yet. So I guess her developmental skills right now she's working on are, expressing herself, and also she has trouble when she uses, if she's making a collage and she uses like smaller acorns or, things from outside. She has trouble, dealing with them and putting them on because she's not so careful like that. So that's one. With her personality-wise, she's also trying to, I guess, it doesn't say she's trying to, but I guess something she is working on is interacting with other children because she wants to play, it says she wants to play with them. She stays quiet and kind of like stands back and lets them play. So.
Okay. So Ashley, what can you do as a school-age staff person to help her along with the development of these areas?
Well, as far as playing with other kids, you could try to intervene and say, hey, Amanda, you want to help? You want to join us? You want to play too? And maybe that'll be enough to just get her in there. Maybe she needs somebody to ask her to get in there because she's too afraid to ask herself.
Good.
Also, in the art area, maybe you can show her other things to explore so she doesn't get bored just painting butterflies all the time. Giving her some other ideas. Hey, what other things do you like to paint that we could try? And maybe bring, like it says she really loves making collages out of natural materials. Maybe next time you're outside, have her look around for other materials that she could use.
That's a great idea. Okay, very good. Okay, Renee, tell us about Kendall.
Kendall likes it at the daycare. He enjoys coming there, and he likes sports. He enjoys baseball, practicing, but he is kind of controlling, a little bossy, and gets a little aggressive with his friends. When he gets frustrated, it says he likes to just hang by himself or with staff members. So, he separates himself from the children when he gets frustrated, which isn't always good. And he wants to be a basketball coach or something, baseball team when he's older. That's basically it. And then for my question that I had, what development tests? I feel like he could work on maybe developing a little different thinking abilities. He's on the right track, but maybe as far as with his friends, to learn how to talk to them and it's not always good to walk away when you're angry. Sometimes you have to learn to talk through it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like it says he tries to get them to play, but he gets frustrated when they're not as good as he is. And I don't feel like that's the best. Like he should, I could help him, like, you know, they're not where you are. You have to be patient instead of getting frustrated. It could help them, you know,
Yeah.
where he is. And he is developing his competencies as far as practicing all the time. That's great that he's good at it. It's great that he loves it's great that he loves that sport, you know. It's good to be passionate about something. So.
Okay. And then, Jess, what are some things that you could do as a school-age care staff to help him develop these skills further?
Definitely embrace that he wants to be a leader, but try and show him how to be a leader in a positive way. Maybe instead of like bossing the kids around, having him maybe suggesting that he, you know, helps them with a basketball skill that they want to learn, or simplifying a game and having him show the kids, you know, this is how, you know, we should do this game, and maybe instead of having a complicated version, work with him to try and make the game a little easier for the kids who, you know, aren't as able as he is. I see it says he has a little bit of trouble with handwriting.
Mm-hmm.
I know for my kindergartners, now I know he's 10, but for my kindergartners, I have these really great grippy things that you put on the pencils, and that really helps with their pencil hold. So maybe showing him how to use that, and setting up some kind of thing where if he practices his handwriting so many minutes, he gets extra time out on the court or something like that.
I think that those are all great ideas. That can be really, really helpful. Okay. Let's go to Katie. So, Nick, tell us about Katie.
She's a pain in the butt. No. She's one of the older girls in the group, and she just thinks that everything's like too babyish for her. Like she wants things that are for bigger children and stuff. And they noticed that, you know, she doesn't like doing anything else with anybody else. Like she'd rather just stay in a corner, you know, listening to music, like snapping her fingers, mouthing the words, you know, dancing to the music while she's sitting there just listening to it and everything. And she says when they go outside for recess, she just wants to like sit there and sketch on an art book that she brought home and everything, of making designs and stuff like that. And saying like, this is what I would wear if I was a pop singer, you know, all that stuff. So.
You see my cat's tail? He just jumped up on my lap.
No, I can't see anything.
I know you can't see anything, but my cat just, he's like.
So stupid, I'm getting upset.
All good. Well, yeah, I mean, Katie's at that point where, like, she's maturing much more quickly than all the other kids, and so there's, you know, maybe not an age divide, but certainly a maturity level divide in terms of physical maturity. And so what skill is she working on? What skills is she working on in this scenario?
Well, you can almost say, like, you know, artistic skills and everything with, like, drawing and stuff and sketching things out. You know, you could have, like, vocal skills almost, or I can't really say hand-eye coordination other than, you know, her coordination of, like, snapping her fingers, like, to the beat and everything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think.
And I think she's also working on developing her independence.
Yeah.
She's trying.
That was my other guess.
Yeah, trying to figure out her way in the world and just figuring out where she fits, kind of thing. So I think that what you can do for her is, if she's saying, you know, I don't want to do anything here because it's too babyish, is try to incorporate some of those things that are of interest to her. So in your art center, for example, instead of just having, like, you know, crayons, markers, paints, and things like that typically children like to use, you can get a book about being able to sketch, how to sketch clothing. Maybe get some kind of like fashion design magazines or books so that she would be engaged in something like that. Or, maybe some other like a computer program in terms of how to create music and, being able to, or like a karaoke machine. If she wants to be a rock star, I mean, kids love to do that kind of stuff. You can get stuff so cheap now, and you can get online programs for some basic karaoke stuff because most computers are already equipped with the microphone, so you don't need to get expensive equipment to do it. So, some of those things might be, she might not see those as babyish and might be more willing to be engaged in activities when everybody else is. Okay? Okay. Does anyone have any questions about, and this was a pretty short section of handouts. Does anyone have any questions about? Jess, do you have any questions?
She said no.
Okay. Thank you for monitoring that, Nick.
You're welcome. I'm glad I could help because I can't do anything else.
Okay.
Just picking me off so bad.
Okay. That is not what I wanted to open. Let's try that again. Okay. So how many of you have a child in your center, in your program, in your classroom, not just in your center, who is diagnosed with ADHD?
Who should be or
who is? Who actually has the diagnosis?
That was a good question, Brittany.
Yeah, I have 3.
3 who have a diagnosis.
3 who have a diagnosis, yeah.
And how many additional should have the diagnosis in your opinion?
All of them. 27 additional.
Maybe a few more. Okay. Ashley,
Yeah.
how about you?
Myself included on a good day.
There's 2 that I know of
Okay.
that do have it.
Renee, how about you?
In my class, there's none, but there are some in the preschool that are, but not in my class personally.
Nick's like, I'm going to work where Renee's working.
Oh no, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not even really paying attention, to be honest.
Oh, that's not good. Okay, well,
No,
Nick,
like,
how many?
I'm hearing stuff and everything. Especially you don't have any kids with ADHD. You're lucky.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised. Do you have any kids in your class, Renee, who have attention issues, like focusing issues?
Yep, but they're not diagnosed.
They don't have a
But
diagnosis.
there's issues.
Okay. And Jess, how about you?
Really, I have an excellent class this year. Yes, I'm bragging. I really can't think of any off the top of my head that have, major attention issues.
Okay, good. Okay, and Nick, how about you?
Oh my God, none of them that I know that are diagnosed, but I know for a fact that I have some that probably do have AD or ADHD, and including myself because I have ADHD.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I know exactly how it is.
Okay. As I was going through the handouts in this particular module a couple of nights ago to prepare for class this evening, I felt that it was important to actually start out with, we know a little bit about ADHD. It's a relatively new diagnosis, so to speak, in terms of medical history. And it's not to say that inattention or hyperactivity didn't exist before, but there are also countries that do not recognize ADHD as a disability or even as any type of disorder, which I find interesting, like developed countries, like England, for example. They do not recognize ADHD at all, and then don't medicate children for it. So I started to think about this. I'm like, okay, so why is it that we as a nation do, and we have a very high percentage of children who have a diagnosis with ADHD. And this is one of those things. Remember the other night, last week I think it was, we were talking about behavior, and I said sometimes you really need to look at what is the child eating? What is the fuel that we're giving to children? And that book that I told you about, What's Eating Your Child, talks about the different things like food dyes, pesticides, and things like that that can increase or even cause those symptoms of ADHD. So what I usually tell parents, if parents come in, first if I see a child who has an issue who doesn't have a diagnosis, and it's so much of an issue that it inhibits their ability to learn, or it disrupts the learning of others, and I have to have a conference with the parents, then I say, have you thought about looking at your child's diet and tweaking it a little bit? Here's some information that I have that I think is really important for you to take a look. And I have resources when we go over like nutrition for kids. We're going to go through this whole thing, and you'll have the resources that you can have in your file to keep for when you need things like this for parents. So I say the first thing you look at is food. Most parents want to know that there's a pill or there's a magical solution because they don't want to have the arguments with their kids about what they're going to eat. They don't want to say, no, we can't stop at McDonald's again because it's not good for you. They just, every psychologist out there tells parents to pick your battles, and that's just one they don't want to pick. And then if parents do come in and say, my child has a diagnosis and he or she needs to start taking medicine, I still say to parents, have you thought, here's some information that I have. This information has seemed to help a lot of parents at least reduce the symptoms so their children can function with either less or no medication at all. And I just wanted to give you the information so that you can make an informed choice. So I think that that's important to start out this discussion, because I think way too many kids are diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, and way too many kids are on medication for it when I think they really don't need to be.
Yeah.
Okay? That's not to say that some people don't truly have an issue, but I think that, again, this is one of those things where we look at how much this has increased over the last couple of decades, and there's just no medical explanation for it. Kind of like the whole thing with autism of increasing at epidemic proportions.
Well, actually, and we learned in high school this we had this really intensive AP like history class, and they said Agent Orange was one of the contributing factors for ADD and ADHD, and how it breaks it. I guess the biology and the hormones that it breaks down over time through the lines of family members.
Yeah.
And then one of my kids actually, who he's beyond anything I've ever seen in my life. His sister came to pick him up, and we're having like a family night, so she stayed, and I was about to pour him a cup of juice, and it was a Turkey Hill drink. I think it was like fruit punch or something, and she was like, wait, before you pour that, check if it has any red dyes in it. And it had like 3 red dyes. It was like 31, 39, and 40. And she said, do not give him anything that has red dye 39 in it, because he will go nuts. And I said, so you mean it's going to get worse than this if I give him, this red dye or whatever it is in this drink? And she goes, if you can believe it, yes. I don't know why, but she said that her doctor was telling her, or, telling them that the red dye levels affect, him specifically. I don't know, like, why that is,
Well, it's
I'm sure
Go ahead.
It's unnatural to put in your body, but...
Yeah, it's interesting because the most recent research shows that any synthetic dye increases a child's chance of having ADHD or ADHD-like symptoms. And when I say ADHD, I use that kind of interchangeably with ADD for our discussion purposes. So, so it's really fascinating. And there's a couple of reasons, I think. One is that a lot of the synthetic dyes, first of all, come from genetically modified organisms. And then the other thing is, like, a lot of red dyes come from various beetles. And when you tell people that, they're like, ooh, that's disgusting. I'm like, yeah, if you only knew what was in your food, And then you talked about the Agent Orange. I mean, that's kind of where it started. And I'm not sure that we do this with Agent Orange, but I know that like DDT has been outlawed at this point. But
yeah, a lot of the same properties of Agent Orange, they're in pesticides, and they're actually also in some of the extracts that are in, like if you'll see like mango extract. It's not really mango extract, it's mango flavored chemical.
Right,
So,
exactly.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, here's what's really disturbing is that companies here still make DDT and they export it, and then other countries still use it on their produce, and then they export that produce back to us.
Oh my God.
Mm.
So, yeah. The only way that you can avoid any of this stuff truly is to go with certified organic food, because it's not allowed to have the synthetic dyes, it's not allowed to have the pesticides, or grow your own. I mean, those are your options to be absolutely sure. But what I can say is this, I mean, education and understanding about our food supply has come a long way. I mean, people are becoming more and more aware. Now, I don't know if you saw this in the news, but there was legislation that passed the Senate that companies must label, like they have a genetically engineered salmon now, and it has to be labeled. So if it's a genetically engineered salmon in the grocery store that you're buying, it has to be labeled.
Is that the Monsanto thing?
Monsanto, yeah. They own the patent for the genetically engineered salmon as well as the genetically engineered pig. Yeah. So it's got to be labeled.
Yummy.
Well, yeah, I know. You see what I'm saying? And all of a sudden it's going to be like the genetically engineered baby.
That's happening. That's true.
I know.
You can choose if you want your baby to have like blue eyes or something. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's like, it's really messed up. Like, I just think, certain things you should just leave alone. Like, some things you just shouldn't touch. So, oh, Jess is like, ew. Okay, so I'm sorry, Jess. I want to see. I agree. Wow. Oh, about the, like, ADHD. And they called a prescription in? Wow, that's crazy. My goodness. That's really irresponsible. But I'll also point out, and I think you guys know this, like you never ever, even if you suspect a child has anything, not just ADD or anything else, you never ever ever want to say to a parent, I think your child might have fill in the blank, because you can get yourself into a lot of trouble. You can get your center into a lot of trouble. Did we talk about this before?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we did, yeah.
Yeah, just to make sure because then you're legally liable to pay for the testing, so you don't want to do that to yourself or your center, so you just never say anything like that. So, okay. So in our handouts here, we've got Meet Kyle, Michael, and Caitlin. So we have 3 children with ADD, and I think that the idea here, and you guys probably know this if you have or have had children in your programs with ADD or ADHD, that there are no two that are exactly alike. You've got a broad range of symptoms and the way that it presents itself. Okay, so what I want to do is assign 2 of you to each scenario again. So let's mix it up a little bit. So Ashley and Renee, you're going to take Kyle, and all I want you to do is you're each going to summarize. And I figure if there are 2 people summarizing, what the first person misses, the second person will get, okay? And then, let's see, Ashley and Nick, why don't you take Meet, actually, I'm going to do that. Ashley and Jess, take Meet Michael.
I thought I was with Renee.
I'm sorry, wait a minute. Brittany and Jess, I apologize. Brittany and Jess, take Michael. And then, Nick, you and I will take Caitlin, because I can pull up Caitlin all at one time here. Okay?
Mm.
Okay, does anybody need more time?
No.
Okay. Oops. Okay, so let's talk about Kyle. So, Ashley, tell us a little bit about Kyle.
Kyle is 8 years old, and even though he knows that walking is the speed limit to walk in the hall, he runs from his classroom to the after-school program as soon as the school day's over. And he throws his backpack in, like, around where his cubby is instead of actually hanging it up, and then runs over to get games out to play in the board game area right away. He's trying to play with 2 other kids who don't want to play with him because they think he cheats all the time and breaks the rules, and he never can wait for his turn. And then they start fighting, and Kyle throws the game on the floor because the other kids won't play with him, and says, "Try to use it now." And then he runs into the back area and pours juice all over a basket of crackers.
Okay. Renee, do you have anything to add to that?
Not really.
Okay. So that's fine. Think back
No.
to when we covered just basic development and those skills that kids are working on. What are some of those areas where Kyle might need help?
Well, socially, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's probably the biggest one, I think.
Yeah, socially, and it sounds like he's got lots of energy, and he might need, just a forum or just an environment where he can really expend some of that physical energy, so that he's not doing inside the building.
Physical development.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even emotionally, too, because he didn't know how to handle the other kids not playing with him.
Right.
And his reaction was to run to the back and pour juice on the crackers.
Yeah. And, what does that solve? So, okay. And then also, too, he's working on some organizational skills, some competencies, in terms of, belongings, of just taking care of his stuff, So there are some things that he's working on there for those skills, okay? All right, let's move to Michael. Brittany, tell us about Michael.
Michael is a boy who likes to play basketball. He's very, very good at it, and he always wants to go to the gym. And he likes to, arrange his friends to play the game with him as well. But he noticed that lately his friends don't like to go to the gym with him, and it's because Michael, when people aren't as good as him, he gets mad and he yells at them and he shoves people, and if he's losing, he gets back to sport. Or he's saying, it's not fair, or they did this, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So he has the skills to be a good player, but he doesn't have the social skills to be a good player. And he chalks it up to, he says down here, who wants to be a wimp? You don't have to be a nice player, or be nice to be a basketball player. I've seen lots of famous guys on TV who act like jerks, and they're still millionaires. While Michael is correct, it's not okay when you're a normal person.
Yeah.
It's not okay at all, but when you're a normal person, even more. So.
Okay. All right, so far, what do those two have in common?
Well, they're bad.
Not the social skills to deal with what,
right.
every day, to have friends and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jess, what did you want to add to that?
Oh, I agree with him with the whole social skills thing.
Yeah, it is. Is there anything else you wanted to add about, like, the synopsis of Michael?
I think Brittany pretty much summed it up.
Yeah, she did a good job of the summary there. So, yeah, and although he doesn't seem, it comes out in different ways for these two. The difference is that Michael's very verbal about his feedback to others, where if you think about, what's his name, first one, Kyle was very passive-aggressive, right? He took juice and poured it on the crackers. He destroyed the toy, like, okay, so see if you can play with it now. Whereas Michael was like, had the verbal abuse kind of thing going on. So that's another difference. And then, Nick, you had to exit and re-enter, so I did Caitlin. Caitlin is, her deal is that, like, she just gets so distracted so easily, but she's lost in her own world. She gets, like, that glazed over look in her eyes when an activity is going on, or when she's supposed to be attending to something. So they have a scenario where she's in class and she's trying to decide what to do. She's sitting in a beanbag chair and she's looking around at all of her choices, and she doesn't really know what she wants to do first. And then the mural on the wall catches her eyes, and she finds herself just staring at all of that. And then all of a sudden she remembers that she had homework to do. So she got up, went to her cubby to get her math book, and went across the hall to the homework room, and the room was really quiet. There were other kids there who were doing their homework, and she sat down, and then she realized that she forgot her assignment sheet, so she was trying to remember at school, not in the other room. So she was trying to remember what her assignment was, and she just picks a page and just starts working on the problem on that page, and then she sat down next to a girl named Rachel, and she realized that Rachel's dress had, like, dolphins on it, and it reminded her of how she saw a dolphin show at her family last summer, and that she wants to swim with the dolphins one day, and that this reminds her of her swimming class at the Y, and she wishes that she were there right now. So then suddenly Rachel, the girl next to her, gets up, and Caitlin goes back to her math problem, and she has to start over because she didn't remember what she was doing. And then she finishes that problem and begins the next, and it's more difficult, and she wonders if this really is the right page because she hasn't seen a problem like that before. So she looks off into space and is thinking about it, and then she can't keep her mind on the problem. The room is so quiet, and then she becomes aware of this buzzing and the fluorescent lights, and she tries to block that sound out, but she can't. And then the buzzing reminds her of a bug light that her grandfather had on his back porch, and how the light sizzles every time a bug flies into it. And then she gets startled when she hears her teacher saying, "Caitlin, if you don't stop dreaming, you'll be here all afternoon and you'll never get your homework done." Okay? So there are some things going on here. It's not really about the social skills, but what are some issues for Caitlin?
Focusing. Just focusing.
I'm sorry, what?
Focusing,
yeah. And so it might be as simple as, if you have a kid like Caitlin coming in who's getting ready to work on homework, most school districts now have homework assignments posted online. The teachers have, like, a blog page, and so you might want to develop some teamwork between home and or between school and after school program, and just check. So like if she is not sure what she's doing, you might want to check and say, you know, do you have your homework assignment sheet? Do we need to look it up on the computer, and lead her to do that, because we want her to be independent in doing that. And then also breaking it into chunks. Kids with focusing issues look at a whole page of math problems and they're overwhelmed. So you might say, do this one problem and check back with me. And then if they do a couple of problems correctly, do this row and then check back with me. Those kinds of things, and guide her through that assignment so that she doesn't drift off, you know, and every few minutes check in with her. So those are some of the ways that you could help someone like Caitlin. So the things to remember, okay, someone either left or came in. I don't know who that was. Okay. So the things to remember, the difficulties that are currently associated with ADD, we talked about difficulty focusing, difficulty sustaining attention over time, difficulty dividing attention, so having a conversation with a friend at the snack table and pouring juice without spilling it. So kids with ADD, generally not good multitaskers. And then the difficulty using unstructured time. And this is where they get into the most difficult situations in after-school care, before-school care, because we give them a lot of free choice, right?
Yeah.
We give them a lot of time to do free choice activities. And with a child with ADD, they really just don't know where to start. So you may sit down with them and say, okay, what are your 3 favorite things to do when you're here in after-school care? Okay, and this afternoon, what's the first thing you're going to pick? So that way when you say, well, you have free choice time, they know where to go because they've already thought about it and they have a plan, okay? The other thing to do, and I saw this done, and it's actually, it looks really cool. It was on Pinterest. I was like, this is really neat. For all kids, because they can benefit from those organizational skills. And we may have talked about this too, but we have cookie sheets for each child that are hanging up behind where their coat or their cubby is on the wall. And they had like magnetic buttons that had pictures of the different things that they were supposed to do. So if it was like put jacket away, put backpack away, or whatever it was, homework, and that the top part was divided into their tasks, and they had those buttons there, and then the bottom part of the cookie sheet said done. And when they finished those things, they moved the buttons from the top to the bottom so that they knew that they were finished with all of their tasks. That's a good organizer for them that's presented to them in picture form, and it also is a kinesthetic thing where they're actually moving things from one place to another, and it gives them a sense of accomplishment. So that's something that you might want to think about, okay? All right, so we've got a little bit more information to cover in terms of other indicators of ADD. So I'm going to count these here real quick. Okay, so there are 7 of them. So I'll take 2 and then I'll assign 1 to each of you. Or we might be able to skip some. We talked about distractibility. So let's see, Nick, could you take low arousal? Jess, if you could take impulsivity. Renee, take inefficient self-monitoring. Ashley, take poor fine motor coordination. Brittany, take in some but not all a high activity level. And I'll take often highly sensitive.
Taking low arousal?
Yes. Okay, does anyone need more time?
No.
No.
Okay. Renee took off, but that's okay. Okay. All right, Nick, talk to us about low arousal.
Okay. Well, it's low arousal. No, it's just saying about, people with ADD, and I think this would also go with ADHD also.
Mm-hmm.
But with low arousal, it seems like some people, as they say here, glazed over, spaced out, in a fog, like just don't pay attention and stuff like that, as are some indicators and everything. But they also say that when they're listening to something, they'll be like tapping their fingers on a table, moving their leg, or tapping their foot, or just moving the focus and everything. And it's funny because I actually do that also.
Mm-hmm.
I sit there and like my leg will move or swing, or my foot will tap and stuff like that. So I understand with that and everything. But they also even have the part of like where they want to do something that they know is wrong, and they kind of want to get caught. So it's like a wake up, or I guess that's what it was, like a wake up call to them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much the gist of it, more or less, other than talking about medications of like Ritalin. And I know how that is. I've taken it.
Right.
So.
And yeah, and at this point, Ritalin is probably the most popular medication that is distributed or prescribed for ADHD, and but there certainly are others, and I know that everyone's physical biology is different, and so for a lot of kids, if they're over-medicated, then that could also be contributing to that sort of glazed over, spaced out in a fog. So what's frustrating for you as a teacher is that you've prepared what you feel like is this exciting environment that should be engaging and bringing kids in and having them want to be drawn to those materials. And when you have a child who with low arousal as one of those characteristics, they don't seem to be interested in everything. So the thing is you have to remember that you've not failed as a teacher. You just need to work to try to get this particular child engaged in something. And so that might require a little bit of extra effort on your part. But it certainly can be done.
Like I know they give Ritalin. They also give Concerta also. Like I know like with Ritalin it helps like calm a child down or whatever with like their I don't want to say problem or whatever, but the fact of like not being able to sit still or move around and everything. I know Ritalin helps them with that. And I know that Concerta, what it does, it makes them like pretty much slow down their thought process and really think about what is going on and what's happening.
Right. It's interesting because Ritalin is actually a stimulant, but it has the reverse effect in children. So I don't know at what age we can no longer prescribe Ritalin for ADHD. I don't think we prescribe it in adults, but I can't say that for certain.
I think for the adults, it's the what's that called? Oh my God.
Is it Wellbutrin?
No.
It sounds familiar, but.
No, it's a problem too now in colleges. It's that one drug.
Adderall?
To get you to.
Is it Adderall?
Adderall, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. And what is the problem? What's the problem in colleges?
Oh my God, at my school, especially, there's a huge problem with abusing drugs that get you to focus, basically.
Oh.
And Adderall is one of them, and there's a couple of other different forms of it, but it's basically ADD, adult ADD, you know, how to deal with it. The problem with it is it does get you to focus on what you're doing for longer periods of time. However, if not taken correctly, it basically acts as like a body stimulator where you heat it up so bad, you know, you overheat or you have a heat stroke or something along those lines.
It's more or less people that don't have ADD or ADHD. They're just popping the pills to get a high.
Yeah.
Are they doing it to get a high, or are they doing it so they can, like, pull an all-nighter?
Both.
No, with people
Some
that
people
don't
take it, you
have
know, as
ADD.
almost like a marijuana type or property, where it does get you to kind of like, you know, oh, like, okay, let me sit down and think for hours on end. Whereas, you know, others people, it's okay, I'm gonna focus on this. This paper's only gonna take me 3 hours. 3 hours later, I'm, you know, still blah 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 blah, blah and I want to finish everything. It's almost like an overload.
I see. What were you going to say, Nick?
I don't remember.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, I hate this computer.
Okay. I think it was Jess, right? Tell us about impulsivity.
Basically, where the child acts before thinking. To them, there aren't rules, or they don't like to follow them.
Mm-hmm.
So if they would get upset, the first thing they do is like taking it out on another child, like pushing or shoving, instead of really thinking about the situation and thinking reasonably.
Right. You know,
Like I had a second grader who did this to me a lot, and she would, you know, keep coming up to me and asking me all these questions constantly, and got to the point where, you know, I didn't have time for the other children because she was just pretty much up my butt the whole time, and I'm like, you know, we need to set some rules here, and so we set up like a little system where if she would wait for her turn or say excuse me while I was talking to like a parent or a teacher or even a child, she'd get a high five right away.
mm-hmm.
And that seemed to work for the most part.
Yeah, you really have to work with a child who has this characteristic. You do have to give instant gratification or instant reward for that skill that you're working on. Because, you know, even a typically developing brain, someone does really not understand cause and effect. That portion of your brain doesn't develop until you're in your 20s. So it is even more so for a child with this particular symptom or characteristic of ADD, because they really don't get what the consequences are going to be. And they do it 20 times and they get, you know, 20 different punishments, or maybe it's 20 times of the same punishment, and it doesn't register. So you really need to work with those positive behavior supports that we talked about before, like the social and emotional supports that we put in, like the sticker charts and, you know, like you just said, Jess, the instant high five. And even, yes, you're going to have to really focus on it, and you have to be consistent. Consistency is the key, but they will eventually get it. It can be frustrating to you as a teacher because you feel like they're never going to get it, but it will eventually work. So, okay, let's move on to inefficient self-monitoring.
Basically, me and you we know what not to say, and we know what's rude and what's not rude. You know, we don't sit around and insult each other.
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah. But a lot of times children with ADD, they don't understand telling a person, their friends, I don't like you, isn't going to get them very far. This is basically just saying they don't understand how their words hurt, and how they can't just go around and say everything what they're thinking and everything what they're feeling, because it can lead to, you know, broken friendships and hurt feelings, and they don't know why. So that's basically what it's saying.
Right. One of the most effective exercises I did with school-age children, because, you know, kids, they call each other names, and then they go, oh, I take it back. you know, and so kids in general don't understand how words affect others, but also children with ADD who, you know, do these kinds of things. And this is the kid who, like, when they get a birthday gift from Aunt Mabel and it's something they don't like, they say, that's ugly, I don't like it. I mean, they just, you know, they don't, because they don't have that social barometer to kind of gauge what they should and should not say. So what I did is I got little like dessert paper plates, and I got a little trial tube of toothpaste for each kid, and I told them that they could squeeze it all out and make designs in the toothpaste on their plate, and you do whatever they wanted. They could make smiley faces or swirls. They could write their name. And then I took a $20 bill and I stuck it in the middle of the circle. They were all sitting on the floor. And I said, I will give $20 to whoever can get all of the toothpaste back in their tube. So they're trying, yeah, well, you know it's not going to happen, right?
Right.
So they are trying like mad to get all of that toothpaste back in, and they're cramming it in. They've got toothpaste like all up and down their hands and arms. And the idea is that once you squeeze that tube and the toothpaste comes out, you can't get it back in. And once you call someone a name or you say something hurtful, you can't just say, I take it back. And it is the way it was in the beginning. So after they had that experience, then all I had to say, like, if they were acting up and at each other, I would just go, hey, toothpaste. And they're like, oh, okay, and they kind of got it. You know, gave them that experience of you can't take it back. So if you can make it concrete like that, that can often be really, really helpful. Okay. How about poor fine motor coordination?
Individuals with ADD have poor fine motor coordination. They have difficulties doing activities like handwriting, model building, calligraphy, weaving, beading, jewelry making, all different things like that that require close attention and patience.
Right. So some of the things that you can do to help with this is to give them reasonable tasks and don't require them to do these for long periods of time. And if you're trying to help them with like homework that does require writing, one of the things that I've seen, I mean, you guys all have cell phones now where you can speak something in and it'll spell out the text for you. There are programs called Dragon Speak, and you can use those when they are trying to type a paper or write something. Use a speak-to-text program to help them out in that regard. At school age, and especially the older end of the spectrum, most teachers are now requiring that things be typed because kids do need to use those computer skills and develop them. So I think it's completely fine to help kids in that regard. If they do have to do something that does require actual handwriting, give them lots of breaks. Don't require them to sit there for an hour until it's done, and you can't get up until it's done kind of thing. Write a sentence and then get up and do something else, and then we'll go back to it. Write another sentence and get it done that way. Okay? All right. In some but not all, a high activity level.
That was basically saying everything we just talked about. Whereas, some kids have ADD, some kids have ADHD. People with high activity levels, it says, where is it? I'm sorry. As noted earlier, some research used the term ADHD to refer to attention deficit disorder when high activity level is present. And it says, for now, staff and school-age programs should recognize that ADD can be present in children who are highly active as well as children who are quiet and withdrawn. So just because you're, ADHD doesn't mean you can't be ADHD. So it's also important to, while there's kids with ADD and ADHD who have a lot of behavior problems because they need a lot of extra care or attention, it's also important to look out for those kids who might feel a little withdrawn and a little back because, hey, they might not be paying attention because they can't, or they're just not getting it because, again, they can't focus.
Right.
So it's important to pay attention to the quiet ones, too.
Yep, absolutely, because they can get lost. I mean, sometimes we're just happy that some children aren't causing a problem, so we don't really pay attention to them, right? And it's that old saying that the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So if you've got a kid who's acting out and you've got to do damage control, like you're paying attention to that kid, and sometimes the quiet ones can get lost and slip through the cracks. So, it's good to check and see, if kids are following along, if they're paying attention, if they're getting what you're doing. Okay, and then the last characteristic it talks about here is often highly sensitive. So here's what's fascinating. I had a child in my classroom once with ADD, and he did not have ADHD, but he was trying to focus on his work, and if there was a fly in the room, it wasn't going to happen. He just could not, because he could hear the fly buzzing. They usually have, a very highly developed sense of hearing, and those little tiny noises really bug them. Or if a room is too quiet and they do hear like the humming of an air conditioner, or there was one kid who used to get upset with his dad when he just turned the pages of a newspaper because it just completely grated on his nerves. He's like, why do you have to do that? Why do you have to read the newspaper? So, so some of those things that we can do are to help kids tune out the other stimulus. It doesn't necessarily have to be with a different sound that drowns it out, but you can. I'm not opposed to letting kids listen to music while they're doing homework if they can still get their homework done. But one of the most effective ways that I saw a teacher deal with this particular issue was she let kids, and anyone could, it wasn't just like, oh, only the kids with ADHD can do this. She let them sit on yoga balls, those big yoga balls, instead of chairs, because they had the ability to bounce a little bit and kind of roll around, and they self-stimulated to the point where they could then tune out those other distractions. So that was a really effective way, and maybe when you guys do your budget for next year and your director says, what are some materials that you need, you might want to grab a couple yoga balls so that, or body exercise balls, I forget exactly what they're called, and give kids the option of using those. Who says it has to be a seat? It doesn't have to be a chair. As long as they're getting their stuff done, that's all I'm ever concerned about. Okay? Okay, the next section of this basically talks about what we already talked about with growing physically and developing social skills, so we can skip this part. Like, I was floored by the fact that the first module that we did tonight was like 5 pages long, and this one's 58. Okay, the last thing that we're going to cover tonight, I think, the last part where I'm going to break it up and give it to you guys is going to be this, and then we're going to cover some other things that your program can do so that you can accommodate. And this is, again, this part now that we're getting into, this is not just for children with ADHD. It's whatever kid has this particular characteristic, whether if it's if they're diagnosed with another disorder or disability, or they just have this challenge. So that's how I want you to think of it from moving on from this point forward. It's not specifically children with ADHD, it's anyone who has some kind of challenge, okay? So, Renee, I would like you to take, and they're not numbered, but I'd like you to take the characteristics on page 13. These are characteristics of quality school-age programs and the potential for mismatch with the capabilities of children and youth with disabilities. Okay? And Ashley, I'd like you to take page 14.
Okay.
Jess, I'd like you to take page 15. Brittany, page 16.
I have it up on my phone here. I don't have page numbers. Which one is that?
Oh, okay. Actually, just take the first one. I'm sorry, the second one. It's the very last characteristic. Opportunities for children to participate in planning and operating the program.
Okay. Wait. Yep, I got it. Okay.
Okay. And Nick, I want you to take this first one. You can see on my screen on that page. opportunities for informal social interaction, one-on-one, in small groups and large groups.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, does anyone need more time?
I need a minute or two.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Everyone else ready?
Yeah.
Nick, are you
Okay.
ready for me to move that?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. All right. So, Renee, did you have the first page here?
Yeah.
Okay.
The characteristic wide variety of activity offerings and opportunities to make choices and decisions. It's saying that children are capable of making choices just like me and you, and that we should provide them the opportunities to do that. What I think a lot of ways it's good to let children do that. It lets them feel like they're in control, or that they have that freedom, or that they're smart. And you can do it with anything, with free play, or when you go outside you can let them pick, what toy they want to play with, and they love it. But it's saying that it's harder for children with ADD to make those choices, that they get distracted easily.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first one. And then the second one, freedom of movement within the program and in the community.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the same thing as the top one. But what I get from it is that you shouldn't treat children like little babies, because that lets them know that you think they're basically dumb, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And they love it when they know they have the choice. They can walk in and choose what they want to do, within boundaries, of course, but that it's harder for children with ADD to do it. But I think they can do it too if you help them,
Right.
know. I think
Yeah,
if you guide them towards it, they can do it. But children love freedom, and they like to know that they can feel free,
Yeah, absolutely. And you just need to structure it for them, and then it's a little bit easier. It's kind of like, you know, you remember Connect the Dots from when you were little?
Yeah.
So you help them connect the dots. If you put the dots a little closer together, they're still connecting them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind
and
of.
it makes them feel smart or like they're worth more. If you treat them like little babies, they're gonna pick up that attitude like she thinks I'm dumb or something.
Mm-hmm.
Especially school age, pick that up right away.
Yeah, and they'll act like babies.
Exactly.
Right.
They act the way you treat them.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, Ashley.
An environment that provides visual and auditory stimulation. So this is saying that we usually assume that a stimulating environment includes bright colors and visual complexity, multiple sounds that will attract children's interest and involvement. But what we don't think about is, with especially children with ADHD, is that if you have all these areas that are stimulating, it's hard for them to focus just on the area that they're in. So they may be in one area and then they see something in another area that attracts them, so they go over there and they don't spend enough time in one particular area, and that we should try to isolate these areas somehow.
Yeah, and maybe not offer as many choices at one time. So it's along what we were talking about before, like you may choose one of these 3 things that I know you love to do. You know, and it could also be like, let's set a timer. When that timer goes off, you may move to another section. Like for a lot of people, this somehow offends their sensibilities and thinks that, you know, the kids, like, basic civil rights are being violated. But what you're doing is you're helping that child self-regulate so that they get a sense of time management, that they get a sense of accomplishment because they've completed a task. Otherwise, you're just floating around from one thing to another.
Yeah.
Okay. How about the next one?
The next one kind of was talking about time management again, too, and that they're not able, or they have a hard time monitoring their involvement in different activities and how much time they should spend on one activity to another and pacing themselves in those activities.
Yeah, okay. That's something, I mean, it's a hard skill, and like I said, have said of many other things, a lot of adults don't have those skills, but if we can try to instill some of those when kids are younger, they're more likely to exhibit those behaviors as adults. Okay? All right, Brittany. No, Brittany, you're the last one. Jess. Sorry.
Okay, many opportunities for independent activity. This just pretty much talks about how it's very challenging for children with ADD to be able to redirect themselves, to hold themselves accountable for actions, and to be relied on. And then next one is informal opportunities to do homework. It's very hard for them to initiate the homework on their own when given a choice, and they still might need help if they choose to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about this before too, that after having sat all day in their school setting, when they come to you, and I get the dilemma because the parents want the homework done. They don't want to struggle with it when they pick up the kids. And some of the teachers like, I feel like if I give them, you know, a break and snack, then they're just like, I can't rein them in again to do homework. So a lot of programs have that philosophy of you do your homework first and then we go out to play or then we have snack. My thing is if the kids have not had lunch, it's been a while since they've had lunch, so some of our kids are eating as early as 10:30 and they don't get to you till 3:30, they need to eat first. That's the first thing. Refuel. Let them blow off some steam and then they can get down to homework. Or let them blow off steam if lunch was later. then refuel, have a snack, and then get down to homework. I think it's unrealistic to expect kids to, after they've been sitting all day, to sit down and do homework first. Okay? What do you guys do in your programs?
There's certain kids I have where when we come downstairs, the gym is our space. The gym of the school is our center site. So when they come to the gym, we have things set up for them. I have an actual homework table where if you're one of those kids who like to sit, it's usually the kids I don't have to talk to. The older kids who get out their homework and they sit. I never have to, you know, wait, did so-and-so do their homework today? No, because I know they did it. There's other kids who I have to set up times and also designated spaces for because, one, they have ADD, ADHD, and they can't focus. They see that somebody else is focusing, so, you know, that's going to distract them. Or they know that, you know, just like you said, they're hungry, I'm tired, I need to go to the bathroom, I just want to run around all day. You know, it gives them, I have that time where, okay, if you come down and you know you can do your homework, then do it. That's around 3 o'clock. 3:30, we're usually outside. 4 o'clock, we have snacks. 4:30 is when we come back to the gym. So those kids that I know that I need to check on, I will check on them. Like, did you do your homework? Do you have homework? Did you do it already? You need to do it. Okay, here's where to sit. Here's what to do. If you need help, I am in this central location. You come to me. Other than that, I don't want to see you. So they know that they have a task to do and it has to get done, you know, before mom comes, before anything comes, and they were already given everything else to do beforehand. So there's no excuse. I want to go outside. I'm hungry.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Okay. Ashley, what do you guys do?
I'm actually in the preschool in the afternoon, so they don't have homework. We usually do snack right away, and then they get a little bit of free play time, and then we go to the gym about 20, 30 minutes after their free play is over, and then they have more free play and activities.
Okay. Renee, how about you?
A lot of it is based on how the kids feel. I mean, if it's a warm day for the first time in a month, obviously when they come over from school, we let them play, you know, because it's exciting. So sometimes it's a spur-of-the-moment decision, and that's a big part of childcare. You have to be flexible. But normally we will have snack first, and then a little free time, like 15 to 20 minutes, and then homework. And that's basically our schedule.
Jess, what do you guys do?
Well, right after we get back from the school, we have snack, and then it's into homework right away. Or for those who don't have homework, they have free play. And then we go outside if there's enough time. Yeah.
And I would say if it's working for you, you don't have issues, that's fine. But my professional opinion is that kids should be getting outside time and snack first before they have to sit down and do homework. Yeah. Nick, what do you guys do?
Okay. What, for after school?
Uh-huh.
Well, you know, the kids get there and everything. We have them sign their names in, and we'll wait for all of our children and stuff, and we try to go outside when it's nice out or not too cold. We get them outside first for, I think it's like 20 minutes or so, and then we'll come inside, we'll wash our hands, we'll get ready for snack and everything, and once they eat snack, we have our centers for them to do, but then we also have, you know, for kids that need to get homework done, that's what they need to get done.
Okay, good.
So, and then parents come and pick up.
Okay, good. Sounds like a good plan.
Annie.
Yes.
I have a question. We have a actual time slot for our outside time. And I don't see that happening in the future where we will be able to we'll have much flexibility in that time slot. So do you suggest anything that we could do?
It doesn't necessarily have to be outside time. It can also be free choice time. The idea is that they can move around, that they don't have to sit in a confined space. So like you could do free choice time inside the classroom and then snack and then homework.
But we also, for our snack time, we're we have that that time slot as well.
Right. So when do the kids come to you?
We get back to the center at around 3:35, 3:40. Snacks should be done by 3:45.
Okay.
I know, it's impossible.
All right, so you have snack first. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, and that's totally fine. And then what happens after that?
The people that have homework do homework, and the ones that don't have free play.
Okay. And typically, how long does it take your kids who have homework to do their homework?
Oh, I'd say 15 minutes. Depends on how many, it depends on what days they have math and spelling in one day.
Okay. And then, okay, so then how long is that homework / free play period?
I'd say about maybe a half hour.
Okay. And then they go outside after that?
Yes.
And then they come in, and after outside time, how long do they typically have until they start to be picked up? Like, is there a good 15-minute window?
Oh, the majority of them get picked up about 4:30, and we're usually outside around 4:30.
That's tough. I mean, what I would normally say is to have snack, give them indoor free play, have your outside time, and then come in and do homework. But if you've got, parents wanting the homework done, I mean, do you have that situation?
Yes.
So, what you may want to try to do, like I know it's really hard. It may be really hard, but if you've got that 30 minutes of free play, so maybe let them play for 10 to 15 minutes and then do their homework before they go outside. Just try that. But if you're, like I said, if you're not having a problem and the kids are getting their homework done, because 15 minutes does not sound like an unreasonable amount of time to spend on homework, then keep doing what you're doing because you're working within the confines of your program. But if you, for next year, or maybe if your summer schedule changes a little bit, then you may want to try to negotiate with your director to see if that outside time slot can change.
Okay.
I would switch it if you could. Do snack and then outside time.
Okay.
And then that free play / homework period. Because then you'll still have enough time to get everything done, and everyone who needs to will get their homework done before parents pick up.
All right. I mean, luckily we've been consistent with our schedule. Mm-hmm. So, the kids are like, oh, after we, get our homework done, we can go outside. Let's go, guys. So, they're pretty motivated to get it done and we can get out. But
yeah, and like I said, if you're not having issues, it's fine. But if you run into a situation, years and years to come, if you've got a child or a couple of kids who just can't handle that, sitting still and focusing for that period of time, and you see it's actually taking them longer to do what should only take 10 or 15 minutes, then you might want to consider switching up your schedule.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and then tell us about the next one. Oh no, this is the last. Yeah, this is the last one. So, Brittany.
This one says, excuse me. This one's giving you an opinion of how maybe you should run your site, meaning that children can provide the rules, the schedules, and it's okay to let them do this because it shows you and them what interests they like to pursue. It focuses their attention, and it can, lead to problem-solving skills that they develop on their own between themselves. When they know they're in charge, they're more likely to take responsibility for, what's going on and their own actions. And then children can direct their attention to follow through on plans. They can function independently and then have social skills required to work as a team to implement their ideas. Where it may not work for kids or programs with kids who have ADD or ADHD, it's because those kids may feel overwhelmed in group settings. They can't necessarily direct their attention to come up with a plan or to actually follow through with it. They don't have that long-term ability to do so. So what it suggests is it's okay that these things happen, but these kids are still useful in a group setting where, you know, your plans are made by the kids or your rules, because they offer creative ideas, maybe sporadically, but they're really good ideas. But whether they fail or, you know, actually work out, it depends on their peers and the encouragement that they have for themselves and that you have for them to work through.
Right.
Or to actually be successful.
Yeah, I think, you know, and I think with a younger workforce being educated about developmentally appropriate practices, we're kind of getting away from the teacher thinking it's got to be, I'm the one who's got to set the rules, I'm the one who's got to set the schedule, and we have more people willing to involve the kids. And that's just going to make them want to participate more, and it's going to give them ownership of their classroom and their community. They'll be more likely to take care of the things in their community, in their classroom. So I think it just makes sense. Some of the things, and if you ever find, I just want to point this out, if you ever find that you've got issues to deal with and you don't know exactly what's going on with a child with a disability, here are some things, and this is on page 18 of your handouts. So these are ideas and a worksheet for structuring and adapting the elements of the program environment. There's a place, have you guys heard of the Janus School?
No.
What?
Yeah.
The Janus School. Ashley, tell me what you know about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I know that they put the kids in their classes based on their abilities instead of like their age or what class they should be in.
Okay. Brittany, what do you know about it?
I said, isn't it something, it's along the structures of a Montessori-based school?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they actually subscribe to the Montessori philosophy. Nick, did you say something? I couldn't hear you.
Nope.
No?
Not say anything.
Is this where every year they, even though obviously the kids get older, the teacher follows them?
I'm not sure if they loop either. They may loop with their kids. But this
is the place?
This is a school. It's the Janus School, and it is a school specifically designed to teach children with disabilities. So when you go in, like I know in a lot of elementary schools, like we like bright primary colors, and we don't think about the energy that different colors evoke. So when you go into this school, first of all, there's no fluorescent lighting. They've got really soft incandescent lighting because fluorescent lighting is one of those things that can actually inhibit a child with ADD from focusing, and especially because they have those hum from the fluorescent lighting. So that's another thing. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I have no idea.
Yeah, there's almost nothing hanging on the walls in this particular school in terms of like display or anything like that. There's very limited visual distractions. The colors are like neutral and soft greens and blues, very serene colors. So it helps calm the kids down. And think about it this way.
Magical.
It's a really cool school. If you get a chance to go, I know.
Yeah,
if you get a chance to go there.
It just reminds you of an insane asylum.
Well, no, it's not. But think about it this way. When you go through a museum, you're like halfway through and you find yourself yawning. And I mean, it's like, yeah, because it's all monochromatic. It's a soft cream color. You know, it's very soothing. And you're just relaxed. It's not like you get jittery when you go to a museum. Yeah, so
I guarantee I'd still get jittery.
So it's got the same kind of thing. It has very little auditory distractions, but these are things, this whole sheet that you can do, that you can go through, gives you ideas on what you can try with like the lighting. So instead of, I know even in my office at Luther Care, like they have fluorescent lighting, but my office mate and I choose to take it off. We each have a lamp on our desk, and then we got a floor lamp for the other side of the room that has incandescent lighting because it's just softer and it's not as harsh on your eyes. Plus, no one really looks good in fluorescent lighting. So.
No one looks good in fluorescent lighting. Nope.
Y'all's a lie. I think I look good.
So, You can also do with the auditory distractions, you can experiment with different types of music that might have a calming effect. Like a lot of those like new agey type of meditation, CDs sometimes can really help kids just slow down and organize their thoughts. You can provide headphones for the music, like we talked about that, of having them do their homework while listening to music. That structure and the schedule, it is important to kind of have that same structure every day. You don't want to be mixing it up, but you still do need to remain flexible for individual situations that come up. Okay? Provide a place for quiet, privacy and quiet in case they want to. And a lot of kids too, and this is for your impulsive kids or kids who have that tendency to break the rules and get upset and do impulsive things like pour juice on the cookies. When you see that they start to get upset, you can say to them, do you need to just go to the quiet place and relax for a little bit, and you can have things like those squeezy stress balls or, different kinds of things that they can manipulate to get the stress out. Okay, and then we already talked about the homework and independent activities, so I don't think we need to do that again. So if you find yourself having a child who has some of these challenges, like I said, whether they have an ADD diagnosis or not, you can then go through this worksheet and think about what are some possible adaptations and enhancements that I can make in my classroom that might help this child be successful. Okay. After that, I just want to make you aware of what's in this packet, because there really is a lot of resource material. Then it's talking about how to design and implement successful activities. So these are things like, bring in some hobbies. Find out what some of the hobbies of the kids are and bring those in and see if there's anything of mutual interest. Board and table games. Things like Legos and Connects and Lincoln Logs and other building activities. A lot of kids, I'm kind of, the jury's still out on this one with me with computers, but kids in general love computer games, and if you can get some educational games that involve the kids, sometimes kids with ADD or who have another diagnosis are able to attend to a computer game. Other enrichment games, doing role-playing and drama games, and some of that just comes out when the kids are doing their free play in like the dramatic play areas, but it's also then providing them with those materials that they would really enjoy using. And then we also talked about the sports and the physical activities and games. Okay? Cooking, gardening. Oh yeah, I did want to say something about this. One of the areas that I have found to be highly successful for kids who have any type of diagnosis is cooking. And I would really encourage you, I know some people are like, I don't know about that. You got hot stuff going on, you got knives in the situation, and this can't be good. But when I taught,
one heck of a time.
Yeah. When I taught school-age children, this was an actual elementary school, we had a cooking class twice a week, and this was a small private school, so there were like 30 kids in the whole school, kindergarten through 6th grade. And what I would do is divide them up each week on 2 different days, and that half of the student body cooked for the entire student body. And so I would have, this was a wide age range, it was kindergarten through 6th grade in that cooking class, and they would be divided up into different stations. So one group would cook the main meal, another group would chop up the vegetables and the fruit, and then another one did the side dish. And then there were dishwashers too. So they did this, they really loved it. And, we talked about like getting kids to understand healthy eating and things like that. When you're in your summer program, if you've got the space, and if you don't have a grassy area to do it, you can also do this in containers. But gardening is a great activity for kids to get involved in. And then when they have planted something, they're more likely to want to try it. And when they can see how good food can be, then they're not afraid to, quote unquote, eat healthy. Okay? Excuse me. So that is basically what is in here. And it also talks about when you're scheduling, you know, structuring your scheduling. I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff in here. And I just feel like if we tried to go through it all, you're going to forget most of it. And it kind of makes sense to me for you to just know what's here so that you understand that the resources are here if you need to go back to them. The last one I want to talk about here is just the strategies for helping school-age children with ADD monitor and manage their own behavior. So if you do find that, like, you have that challenging kid, like Brittany, you said, there's this kid like I have never seen before, you know, this goes through taking those steps to correct the behavior, reinforcing the positive behavior. This goes through that entire process. So these are things that you can look at. This is a resource that's there for you. Okay? Does anyone have any questions?
No.
Okay.
What do you do with, I think my question is, what do you do with kids who almost manipulate their ADD or ADHD to make excuses for themselves as to why they can't do something?
Yeah.
And then mom kind of plays into it, and, you know, because it's understandable. However, how do you deal with that?
Right. Well, what I start with is I say, first of all, have they exhibited the skill before? So if they say, well, I can't because I have ADD, you know, have you seen them sit for 10 minutes and work on something before? And so I start there, and I'll say, well, I know you can do it because I've seen you do it before. So let's talk about how we can structure this activity so that you can do it again. And I usually have the kids, I mean, at school age, I get them involved in drawing up the plan of this is how we're going to tackle this issue, because whether you think you can or can't, it's something we still need to work toward. And I usually develop some kind of contract that they sign.
Yeah.
And I sit down with them and I go, okay, if you can't do this, here are the tasks that are involved in being able to do this. What are the tasks that you know you can do? So task analysis is one of those things where you ever stop and think about it, like what are the tasks involved in being able to brush your own teeth? You've got to have some fine motor in there to be able to turn on the faucet and unscrew the cap and squeeze the tube and get it right on the toothbrush. You know, all of those different skills, those different tasks involved a variety of different skills. So what I would do is break down the skill, do a task analysis, and break it down step by step. And then go through it with the child and say, okay, for tying your own shoe, you know, whatever it is, okay, here's the first part, being able to make a loop with that shoelace, okay, and can you do that? And they'll know if they can do that or not. So that way, maybe you're left with 3 steps out of 12 that they need to work on. So then you just practice that step. Practice that step until they get it, and then you move on to the other step, and then you put them in a sequence for that child. And they're usually able to, I mean, it's a slow process, but then they realize they really are able to do it.
Okay.
Anyone else have a question? Okay, I want to pull up the syllabus. So, we are going to meet face-to-face unless there's another snowstorm. Okay. 1 week from today on April 1st. And what you need to do is get your number 20, your observation tool for your resource file collection. We're going to talk about observation skills next week. And I still need to check into this. I know I sent you the classroom cultural checklist and reflection, but for the case study, I need to double check and see with that, because I didn't see anything in your binder about that. Did you guys?
That's what I was asking. That was on the, remember I said, what is the details of case study assignment?
Right.
I didn't see anything about that.
Yeah, then I would say don't worry about it right now. Just do, and I will have your textbook for you next week, we'll take a look at that. And I mean, I have them. We just haven't met since I've gotten them. And then your written entry is for goal 2 for physical. That's your number 2. Okay, you did number 1 for this week. You should do number 2 for next week. Don't worry right now about the consent for case study. Don't worry about that. Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
No.
And we are starting at 5 p.m. next week. Anytime we meet on an evening, whether it's a Monday or a Thursday, it's always going to be at 5 from now on. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, well, I hope you guys have a great evening. You can have the rest of the time to work on your assignments. And if you have any questions, of course, you may certainly email me or call me. You have my information, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.